At my daughter's beach wedding, just as the sun was sinking into the waves off the coast of Cape Cod, her new husband leaned toward me and said with a smirk, $50,000 for the luxury of being part of this celebration. Otherwise, you vanish from our lives forever. I blinked, trying to process the cruelty in his voice. Before I could respond, my daughter, Rachel, added with a sip of champagne and a dismissive glance, or, enjoy the peace and quiet of a retirement home. Your choice, Mom. They stood there in front of me like a pair of polished porcelain figurines. Glamorous, confident, unshakable in their entitlement. I smiled, lifted my glass, and whispered, "You forgot one thing." The air around us seemed to still. Just for a second. A gust of sea breeze lifted the edge of my shawl, and the sound of the waves crashing behind us filled the silence that followed. Their faces paled. Not dramatically, not instantly, but just enough for me to see at the flicker of doubt, the edge of fear. I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't argued. But something in my tone, in the certainty behind my words, had landed, and they knew. What they didn't know was that I'd been planning for this moment for months. I hadn't come to the wedding unprepared. I hadn't come simply to be humiliated. No, I came knowing exactly who they had become and what they thought I was. They believed I was weak, alone, easy to discard. They forgot that I had built my life from nothing once before. And I could tear down theirs without ever lifting my voice. You forgot one thing, I repeated softly, the wind carrying my words out to sea. Then, I excused myself to powder my nose, leaving them standing there. Because the storm they had summoned, it had already begun. I was 28 the night I left my old life behind. It was raining hard in Boston, the kind of rain that soaked you in seconds. The windows of our cramped apartment rattled with every gust of wind, but inside it was the silence that chilled me most. My husband Tom had passed out on the couch, snoring loudly, his rage spent for now. My cheek was swollen. Again. And in the hallway, my 4-year-old daughter stood barefoot in her pajamas, clutching a worn-out stuffed bunny to her chest, her face streaked with tears. That look in her eyes, wide, resigned, too wise for her age, that's what did it. Not the bruises. Not the yelling. But her eyes. And the fact that she didn't cry out anymore. She had already learned that being silent was safer. That was the moment everything shifted. I moved quickly, like someone in a dream. I grabbed an old duffel bag and packed it with what little I could, Rachel's favorite clothes, some snacks, our passports, and a copy of Pride and Prejudice I had hollowed out weeks ago. Inside were $237 in cash, scraped together from grocery savings and tips I had hidden. When I lifted Rachel into my arms, she wrapped herself around me instinctively. "Are we going on an adventure, Mommy?" she whispered. "Yes, baby," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "The biggest adventure of all." We disappeared into the rainy night, boarding a bus to Dorchester, where an old high school friend had promised us a couch for a few nights. It wasn't much, but it was enough. 2 weeks later, I found us a tiny apartment, just one room with a bathroom barely big enough to stand in. It smelled like cabbage and cigarettes. The wallpaper peeled. The heater clanked. But no one hit me there, no one screamed. And Rachel slept through the night. I found work at a diner serving breakfast from 6 to 2, then changed into a thrifted skirt and blouse to answer phones at a dentist's office from 3 to 9. I was exhausted, always. But Rachel was safe. And for the first time in years, I could breathe. That was the real beginning of our story. Not the wedding. Not the boutique. But that rainy night, when I chose my daughter and myself over fear. Rachel got into Boston University on a partial scholarship. I still remember the day the acceptance letter came. She danced across our tiny kitchen, waving the envelope like a golden ticket. "I got in, Mom, I really got in." Her face was lit with joy, with pride, with the kind of future I had always dreamed she'd have. That night, after she fell asleep, I cried. Tears of happiness, yes, but also fear, because the tuition still loomed large. And what the scholarship didn't cover, I would have to find a way to manage. By morning, I had a plan. I picked up extra shifts at the diner, took on evening cleaning jobs at offices in Back Bay. On weekends, I worked the stockroom at a local department store. I kept going, because that's what mothers do. And Rachel thrived, and Kimi Caesar-ding. She studied hard, made friends, even started dressing more professionally, sleek blazers, elegant heels. When she came home for visits, she'd tell me about her marketing classes, her group projects, her dreams of launching something big. A brand, a boutique, something elegant and modern. She spoke about it with stars in her eyes. After graduation, the call came at nearly midnight. I had just gotten home from a double shift and was about to collapse into bed. "Mom," she said, her voice trembling, "I think I found it." A storefront, small, but full of character. Exposed brick, original hardwood, big windows. "It's perfect," she said breathlessly. "I can see it all. The displays, the collections, the feel of it. But I need help. I need startup money. I know it's a lot to ask, but..." "How much?" I asked. She hesitated. 97,000. The number knocked the air out of me. That was more than I had in savings. But then I thought of the one thing I protected all these years, my retirement fund. Modest, but consistent. Every paycheck, every month, a little tucked away for a someday that never quite came. I met with Sarah Miller the next day, my friend from high school, now a paralegal at a respected Boston law firm. Years ago, I'd let her sleep on my pull-out couch when her marriage fell apart. Now she sat across from me in a downtown office, reviewing the paperwork to liquidate my future. "You're sure about this?" she asked. Unsure. But Sarah wasn't done. She added something extra: partnership papers. "You'll retain 51% ownership," she said firmly. "Rachel will be the face, but you'll be protected." I hesitated, but she insisted. "This isn't about control. It's about security for both of you." Rachel signed the papers without reading them. She was too busy dreaming. 3 months later, Rachel's closet opened with cheese platters, plastic flutes of sparkling wine, and a stack of handwritten invitations. I stood in the back, watching her shine. The boutique was beautiful. She was radiant. And I was happy to be her silent partner. Because this was the dream. Ours. For a while, everything felt like it was falling into place. The boutique grew slowly at first. Sales were modest. Rent was tight. Rachel worked 14-hour days, window displays late into the night, back and forth with designers, running her own social media, answering emails herself. I helped in the background, restocking inventory after closing hours, keeping the books clean, paying for unexpected costs without ever mentioning them. Then one day, everything changed. A girl from college, Elisa, I think, came by the store. She was one of those rising lifestyle influencers. She tried on a cobalt blue sheath dress and posted a photo on Instagram with some flattering caption. The next morning, there was a line outside the store. By that afternoon, Rachel had sold out. Suddenly, Rachel's closet was on the map. She was featured in local magazines. Other influencers dropped in. Customers came from across the city. In 6 months, she was eyeing the vacant space next door. I watched it all with joy swelling in my chest. I only visited after closing. That was my choice. I knew I didn't belong to her new, elegant world, the gleaming shelves, the minimalist decor, the polished customers in designer heels. I came late, wearing the same old sweaters and sneakers I'd worn for years, always careful not to disrupt. "Mom, you should come during the day sometime," Rachel would say casually. "Your world, not mine," I'd smile. "I'm just happy to see it grow." But one night, I came by earlier than usual, holding takeout in a paper bag to surprise her. She was at the counter, chatting with a customer. I stood quietly by the racks, listening. "You've created something amazing," the woman said. "How did you pull this off right out of college?" Rachel smiled, confident and glowing. "I built it from nothing," she said. "Just hard work and a clear vision. No one handed me anything." Her voice was light. Her words were knives. "I built it from nothing. Nobody handed me anything." I turned and left without saying a word, the bag of food still clutched in my hand. Outside, I leaned against the brick wall, trying to steady my breath. That was the night I realized I had disappeared from her story. Not just quietly, not accidentally. Erased. I wasn't part of the narrative anymore. I was just the shadow behind the light. A few months after that night, Rachel met David Harrington. She introduced him briefly at a Chamber of Commerce gala, where she was being honored as one of Boston's top entrepreneurs under 30. I had gone with her my first time stepping into her world, in public dressed in a clearance rack navy dress, and with my hair done at a salon for the first time in years. David was polished, wealthy, confident. The kind of man who said your name once and then never forgot it. I could see right away he liked power. And Rachel, in her sleek heels and boutique success, looked like a perfect match for the world he came from. Within weeks, they were inseparable. Dinners were canceled. Calls went unanswered. She was swept up in his world: rooftop parties, wine tastings, vacations in the Hamptons. When we did talk, David's name came up constantly. David thinks the boutique could go global. David's parents know investors. David's teaching me how real businesses scale. He spoke in buzzwords, and she repeated them like scripture. Then one day, I learned about their engagement from Facebook. A photo, her hand on his chest, a diamond the size of a grape sparkling in the sunlight. I said yes to forever, the caption read. No phone call, no warning. I called her that night. "Oh, Mom," she said, breathless with excitement, "I was going to tell you, we've been celebrating. Isn't it amazing?" Amazing wasn't the word I had in mind. 2 days later, I received a message that wasn't meant for me. It was a screenshot from David to Rachel. "Your mom can't sit with my family at the dinner. My parents would be horrified. Put her at the vendor table." I stared at the screen, waiting for her reply, waiting for her to stand up for me. But no defense came. Just another message to me 7 minutes later. "Mom, can you believe the florist wants $1,200 for eucalyptus branches? This wedding is so stressful." That night, I stopped by her apartment, unannounced. She wasn't home, but her laptop was open on the kitchen counter. And there it was. A tab labeled FMA Management. A full strategy document. Bullet points outlining how to keep me out of sight at key moments, how to extract maximum financial support while minimizing my visibility. A comment from David: "After the wedding, it'll be easier to create distance." I closed the laptop and stood in silence. They weren't just forgetting me. They were planning to use me and discard me. And that's when I called Sarah. "I need you," I said. "And I need you not to ask questions yet." Sarah didn't hesitate. The very next day, we met in her home office. Legal pads, file folders, and coffee mugs filled the room like a war room in progress. "If I activate my majority ownership," I asked, "what does that actually allow me to do?" Sarah looked me in the eyes. "It means you can initiate a full audit, freeze the business accounts, revoke any unauthorized contracts, and if necessary take back control of operations." I nodded. "But I won't move unless they give me a reason," I said. She raised a brow. "What will the trigger be?" I didn't answer then. But I knew. And it came on Rachel's wedding day, on that Cape Cod beach, under strings of fairy lights and soft jazz floating from rented speakers. When David turned to me, drink in hand, and said with a smile too polished to be sincere, $50,000. Pay it or vanish forever. When Rachel, in her custom white gown, echoed him with a tone so casual it cut deeper than any scream, or enjoy your solitude in a retirement home. That was the moment. The one they never saw coming. I lifted my glass slowly, savoring the bitter champagne, then whispered the words I had rehearsed in my mind for weeks. "You forgot one thing?" Their smirks faltered. The flicker of fear in their eyes was brief, but it was there and it was all I needed. "I need to powder my nose," I said lightly. Then I walked away, heels clicking on stone, heart calm for the first time in years. Not out of revenge, but because the moment had arrived. The signal was ready. And so was I. I didn't go to the restroom. Instead, I walked past the marble-floored corridor, across the deck, and down the narrow wooden boardwalk that curved between the dunes. There, tucked in a small alcove facing the ocean, I sat on a weathered bench and pulled out my phone. The sun was setting, casting gold over the waves. I typed one sentence. "Sandcastle time." "Within moments," Sarah replied. "Understood. Packages delivering now. Legal team standing by. Are you okay?" I stared at the horizon for a long beat, then responded. I will be. 7 minutes. That's how long I stayed on that bench. Just long enough to let go of the last strand of hope that my daughter would choose love over image, truth over performance. Then I stood, brushed the sand from my shoes, and made my way back toward the reception, this time from a different angle, staying along the outer path to observe unseen. The unraveling had already begun. The wedding coordinator approached David's parents first. She handed them a sealed envelope with calm professionalism. "This was delivered for you, Mr. and Mrs. Harrington." Similar scenes played out at tables around the venue. Every envelope went to someone who had unknowingly invested in Rachel's closet under David's guidance. Inside each envelope, a legal notice of immediate audit, notification of asset freeze, and Sarah's team's detailed explanation of financial irregularities and unauthorized actions. It didn't take long for concern to spread. David's father was the first to react. His face darkened as he read. He rose abruptly, napkin falling to the floor, and made his way across the venue with thunder in his eyes. Meanwhile, phones buzzed. Rachel's company email, now under my access, sent automated messages to all vendors, clients, and board members. Subject line: immediate business hold, pending legal review. I stepped out of the shadows and walked along the edge of the gathering. David's voice was low and urgent, arguing with his father. Rachel stood frozen, holding her champagne like a shield, her face pale beneath the makeup. Then she saw me. "Mom?" She rushed over, panic rising. "What's happening? Everyone's getting these insane emails about the boutique." I looked her in the eye. "Not insane," I said evenly. "Accurate. I'm exercising my rights as majority owner." David appeared beside her, jaw clenched, the smooth polish gone from his expression. "What have you done?" he hissed, voice low. "I've protected my investment," I replied calmly. "Did you think I wouldn't notice the unauthorized investors? The missing funds?" Rachel's eyes darted. "We can explain, Mom. Please, it was just temporary. We were going to pay it back." "To fund David's side project," I said. "A real estate venture he wasn't confident enough to pitch to his own parents, so he funneled money from the boutique instead." David's face drained of color. Across the lawn, his father was now speaking furiously with a couple holding another envelope. "You have no idea who you're dealing with," David said through clenched teeth. "My family." "Is that why your father looks ready to disown you?" I asked, nodding in the man's direction. "I wonder how he feels about you using a boutique as a personal piggy bank." Rachel looked at me, tears filling her eyes. "Mom," she whispered, "you have to fix this. Please. Everything we've worked for." I cut her off gently. "Everything I worked for." She reached for me, desperate. "I'm your daughter, your only child. You can't do this to me." I paused. That old instinct to protect, to forgive stirred for one final time. But then I remembered the spreadsheet, the vendor table, the silence after the betrayal. "I already did," I said softly. "You showed me what I meant to you. I just finally believed it." David's phone rang. Rachel's buzzed again. Emails, legal notices, repercussions. They spiraled into panic. And I turned and walked away. Through the chaos, through the whispers, through the shame that no longer belonged to me. My heels clicked across the wooden deck, steady and sure. Not angry. Not broken. Just done. I left the reception without another glance. At the edge of the property, I slipped off my heels and stepped onto the cool sand, letting the ocean breeze wash over me. With every step away from that glittering disaster, I felt lighter, freer. 3 miles down the beach, Sarah waited in her gray sedan, the engine quietly running. She didn't ask questions, just smiled and opened the passenger door. We drove in silence for a while, the coast blurring past in the rearview mirror. I didn't need to look back. I already knew what I was leaving behind. Not just a wedding. Not just a betrayal. But a lifetime of being needed only for what I could give. Now, I was choosing something else. In a quiet town north of the city, a new storefront awaited, modest, untouched, mine. I would open something small, simple. Built not on sacrifice but on joy, not for anyone else's validation, just for me. Let Rachel have her spotlight. Let David rebuild his image. I had no revenge to savor, only peace to protect. For the first time in decades, I wasn't someone's mother, someone's backup plan, someone's savings account. I was just me. And that was finally enough. If this story moved you, don't forget to hit that like button, it helps more than you know. Have you ever had to walk away to find peace? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you love stories of quiet strength and redemption, subscribe for more. We're just getting started.